Hey, what's up, y'all? My name's Chris Abbott, but all my friends just call me Abbo. And in this video, we're gonna be talking about how to develop a leadership philosophy that inspires. Coming up. Hey, what's up, y'all? Welcome back. If we're meeting for the first time, welcome. I'm Chris Abbott, and this channel is specifically dedicated to helping pastors and church leaders be more effective in ministry and use social media and technology in order to grow your church. So this video, we're gonna kind of switch it up a little bit, right? We're gonna be talking about how to develop a leadership philosophy that inspires, right? So any leader out there, again, whether you're a senior pastor, assistant pastor, executive pastor, youth pastor, worship pastor, whatever it is, we all have to be able to develop a leadership philosophy and a strategy in order to get people to follow us, right? Because if you don't have anyone following you, you're not a leader, you're just going for a walk. Right? So what we're going to do is we're actually going to talk a little bit about how Apple has developed a leadership philosophy that inspires and how we can use those same principles in our church. So let's dive in. All right, so if you've ever studied the Wright brothers, it's actually super interesting, right? These guys are two brothers. They're actually from Ohio, right? We all know the story about how in Kitty Hawk, North Carolina, right, they had the first flying machine. Well, if you've ever actually studied it, then they weren't the only ones trying to invent the airplane, right? This is kind of crazy. I actually didn't know this first when I started studying it either, right? Is there are actually tons of people who are doing it because the world knew that there had to be some type of flying machine that we could invent that would actually carry people and that we could fly, but nobody knew how to do it. So it was kind of a race to figure it out. And so the cool thing about the Wright brothers is they basically didn't have any money, like didn't have any budget, right? They had a bicycle shop and they literally used the profits from their bicycle shop to fund this hobby of creating the world's first flying machine. Now, if you contrast that with a guy named Samuel Pierpont Langley, here's a guy who actually had $50,000 from the US government, and he had access to all of the brightest minds, the best engineers, the best scientists, right? So in the early 1900s when this is going on, he's got the equivalent of millions of dollars in budget and access to the smartest people in the world and basically unlimited resources. And then you got the Wright brothers who have nothing but the profits from their bicycle shop to do this as a hobby, right? It's pretty crazy. But the difference is that Samuel Pierpont Langley wanted to become famous, right? That's all he cared about. He wanted the fame, he wanted the money from being the guy who invented the first airplane. The Wright brothers wanted to create a flying machine because they believed that the human race had to progress forward, that they had to innovate, and that the human race had to take to the skies in order to move forward. So one guy wanted to be rich and famous, the other people believed it was their destiny to fly. It's actually been recorded that the Wright brothers would take 5 sets of parts for their airplane because that's how many times they would crash before they came in for dinner, right? Like imagine that, like literally you're going out with 5 sets of parts because you know you're gonna crash at least 5 times before the day's over, right? But that's what they did day in and day out. And lo and behold, in Kitty Hawk, North Carolina, they became the very first people to create the first flying machine. And now everyone knows who the Wright brothers are. Now, chances are you've never heard of Samuel Pierpont Langley, right? Why is that? Well, it's because the day that he found out that the Wright brothers had beat him and that they had created the first airplane, he quit, right? He wasn't first, he wasn't gonna become rich and famous, and so he quit. And the crazy part about this is that he actually could have taken the Wright brothers, like he could have gone to Kitty Hawk, North Carolina, he could have sat down and interviewed the Wright brothers, he could have said, hey, what you guys have created here is absolutely incredible. Man, I've got all this government resources and some of the smartest people. Let's work together, let's innovate, and let's build upon the technology that you guys have created. But he didn't. Right? He wasn't first, he wasn't famous, he wasn't gonna become rich, and so he quit and moved on. The reason that I'm telling you guys this story is because this is a really, really powerful principle when you're creating your own leadership philosophy that inspires. And that is simply this. People don't buy what you do, they buy why you do it, right? So if you want to inspire people, imagine what the pitch would have been to Samuel Pierpont Langley's team. If he was trying to get you to come onto his team and follow his leadership, right? It's like, hey, here's the deal. We know it can be done. We know that we can create the first flying machine. Man, if we do this, we're gonna make a bunch of money. We're gonna be first. Our name's gonna be in all the papers. We're gonna be famous, and let's go, right? Contrast that with what the Wright brothers must have said. Like, hey, man, we believe that if we can create the world's first flying machine, we can change the world, right? Imagine what it would be like if you didn't have to ride on horseback anymore, but you could actually ride in an airplane and you could fly from one destination to the next, right? Imagine how much more of your family that you could see. Imagine what it would be like to share the gospel with people far away that's not going to take you days to get there, right? Just imagine what happens if we could open up the entire world of possibility if we can fly. Man, you want to join the team, right? Like, obviously, that's going to be so much more inspirational. It's going to inspire people to want to be helped, right? People aren't inspired by riches and fame. Sure, you're going to have some people follow you for that, right? But people that are in it for the long haul, people that are willing to crash 5 times before dinner every single day, man, you have to be able to inspire them. And that's exactly what the Wright brothers did, because people don't buy what you do, they buy why you do it. All right, so before I get to my last couple of points, man, would you like this video and subscribe and then hit that little bell notification? That's gonna make sure that you get a notification every single time we drop a new video. So as it turns out, there's actually a pattern that great organizations and great leaders around the world use in their leadership, right? And so Simon Sinek actually has an entire TED Talk on this, and it's pretty incredible, right? But basically what he talks about is he codified what this pattern is, and it's pretty simple. So if you imagine a target, right? You've got a bullseye, then you've got kind of a middle circle, and then you've got the outer circle, right? What he talks about is that every leader and organization knows what they do, and some of them actually know how they do it, but very few organizations and leaders know why they do it. When you're communicating, most people communicate from the outside circle, which is what you do. And some people go to the next level and actually communicate how they do it, right? Maybe they have a proprietary process, or they have something that makes them different or makes their church different than everyone else, right? But very few people go all the way to the inner circle in the bullseye, which is why you do it. For example, one of the reasons that I do this, one of the reasons that I spend so much time and resources creating videos like this for church leaders like you, is because I know that 7,755 people die in the US every single day, and most of them don't have a relationship with Jesus, right? So that's why I'm constantly trying to innovate and figure out new ways of using social media and technology to reach people far from Jesus. And then I come on here and create YouTube videos teaching you how to do it. Let me ask you this: what is your why? Why are you in ministry? Why are you a leader? Why have you dedicated yourself to full-time ministry when you could probably, let's be honest, make a lot more money in a different industry? It's important to understand our why. Like, most people communicate the what on the outside of the circle. Some of them communicate the how, but great leaders and organizations communicate the why. All right, so take a look at Apple, right? If Apple were like everyone else, then a typical marketing message from them would sound something like this: we make great computers. They're beautiful designed, simple to use, and user-friendly. Want to buy one? Not very inspirational, and it doesn't really kind of get your juices flowing or that excited, right? It kind of is what it is. And that's what everybody else in the industry does. But the way that Apple actually communicates is they say something like this: in everything we do, we believe in challenging the status quo. We believe in thinking differently. The way that we challenge the status quo is by making our products beautifully designed, simple to use, and user-friendly. We just happen to make great computers. Want to buy one? Totally different, right? It has a totally different feel. All they did was they communicated the why up front, right? It was backwards. They didn't just say, we make great computers, want to buy one, right? They actually told you why they do it, and you buy into that why. So every single person who also believes in challenging the status quo, who also believes in thinking differently, right? Now you're attracted to Apple because you believe what they believe, right? They believe what you believe, and this draws people into you. And so by communicating your why up front, now you can attract people to your vision, right? To your leadership and to your organization, not because you have a lot of charisma, not because you're just telling people what you do or even how you do it, but you're communicating why you do it. So I recently came across 2 different church websites, right? Let me read both of these to you. This was the first thing that you saw on the church website, right? And you tell me which one you think communicates the why and which one you would want to visit on Sunday morning if you were looking for a church. On the first one, the very first thing it said on the homepage was this: it is vitally important that churches remain doctrinally pure. Nearly every New Testament book includes some form of warning against false teaching. The points of our statement of faith are not exhaustive to what we believe, but do provide safety rails for preserving sound doctrine. Does that make you want to go to church on Sunday? Right? But that pastor, and while he's a phenomenal pastor, right, has an incredible vision, the very first thing that is communicated to any potential visitor is about doctrine and being doctrinally pure, right? And do you think an unchurched person has any clue what he's talking about? I'd say probably not. Okay, contrast that with this second website from Crossroads Church. You were born for adventure. You were born to make a difference, designed to partner with God to change the world for good. If that sounds like your type of adventure, Crossroads is your spiritual outfitter. Totally different, right? So which one would you want to visit on Sunday? Right? And I think it's obvious, right? Because Crossroads is communicating what they believe. They're communicating why they do it, because they believe that you were born to make a difference. They believe that you were designed to partner with God to make a difference in the world, right? And so what happens is they attract all the people that believe that same thing. They're searching for purpose or trying to find their calling and go, yeah, that's it, right? I believe what you believe. These are my people. That's where they want to go to church on Sunday. Right? So it's vitally important to communicate the why, right? And Crossroads did a beautiful job with this copy and communicating the why in a way that doesn't put their church as the spotlight, but literally puts the person reading it in the center of the story. All right, so now that we've talked about how to create a leadership philosophy that inspires, if you're trying to grow your church and attract new visitors so that you can have more followers, then head on over to churchgrowthagency.com. We have a free training video showing you exactly how to use social media and technology to attract a steady stream of new visitors to your church every single Sunday. See you soon.